I told the board last night, if you really think about that, those are individuals that are leaving at a young age, going to hopefully staying in our community, but they're job ready at that point in time. So that's 143 students that had not had the opportunity before, that probably just changed their life earnings, and giving them an opportunity to go out and earn great wages, but also provide a service for this city, which would be extremely important for you as a commission as you develop and move things through your strategic plans and do those types of things. This last year, we had the first semester, we had 76 students enrolled in that. And so that is not into the 143, but a high percentage of those, my guess would be completers as well. So there's a lot of positive things happening, and I think we forget about those. I think we don't talk enough about the positive things that are happening in our district. I don't think we talk about enough positive things that are happening in our community. And so with that, I think that as we move forward and as you move forward with the new leadership in the district, I look forward to all of you to continue to build that bond and build that partnership, and both sides really do what's best for the community, because I think that that's the most important. Some other things that you might be aware of: tomorrow is the foundation breakfast. Those of you that are part of the Educational Foundation or supported the Educational Foundation, what a great partnership that's been over the past, and will continue, I'm sure. But one of the things, the breakfast is a thank you to all the donors, but the important part of that is all of this grants that were given to students or given to teachers for students. And the number of those grants turned into programs, which are things that are funded year after year after year with the donations that the people have given. So it's a great process that fortunately I inherited. It's built. They've done a great job with continuing the mission of that, of supporting teachers, which supports kids. So excited for the foundation breakfast. All of our winter sports wrapped up. Spring sports have begun. Spring break is next week. Talking with teacher leadership today. Teachers are ready for spring break. They need that week to kind of re-energize. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like Mother Nature is going to give them a lot of warm weather, but nonetheless, I'm excited for them to have some time off and to re-energize themselves and give them an opportunity to come back for this last quarter and really knock it out of the park for our kids. Before you know it, graduation's around the corner. We'll be working with various options on that. Our intent right now is to have it outside, but I will tell you, in the 9 years that I've been here, I think only 2 or 3 have been outside. Mother Nature has taken the rest inside, and COVID actually took one inside as well. So really, we're plugging away. The staff is very, very dedicated to our district and to our community, and it's exciting and humbling to be the superintendent of the district, even though I'm a short timer now. So with that, I would take any questions the commission may have of me.
First off, I just want to say, man, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for being the bridge to connect the city and the school together. You have really helped create, unified us as a whole. And so, man, just thank you, man, just for your passion and your purpose, and not being afraid to take on those challenges. You've done a remarkable job. Thank you. And thank you so much.
It's
will be missed.
I would love to take credit, but honestly, it's the people I work with, and the people I work with are phenomenal. So I get to look good in a lot of areas because of people in my office, and the teachers and the staff and the custodians and maintenance people, and really just all of USD 5-3. So thank you for that compliment, but my compliment goes to the people that I get to work with every day.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, Dr. Mike Roth, I wanted the 143 that got the certification on that, and that's free to them.
That's correct. That's an agreement that we worked out with Kansas City, Kansas Community College. What that really entailed was really some forward thinking from the school board at the time. We had a vacant building. We worked it out to where they could have that vacant building rent free, but all of our kids and all the programs are funded by them, but our kids get to attend it free. And so Yes, all of those certifications and all the certifications really since 2016, I believe is when we first initiated that, were free to kids. And so it's really paid dividends, and it's been a great investment for our district because we are invested in kids. So thank you for asking that question because I think a lot of people have forgot that.
Right. No, it's a great opportunity because otherwise some people, even after high school, might not be able to afford it. But this way, you're leading them on the right path.
Yes.
To success. And then I just also wanted to bring up, I bring this up every year because I really enjoy it, but I was able to do Reading Across America. I think all of us did that, so it was fun. I read to the first graders this year, and they're just jelly beans, so it was a it was a good experience.
I know that they look forward to that as well, so they're super excited when they get adults to come in and do that.
Do that. But yeah, and thank you for your leadership and
Thank you.
everything that you've done.
Well, I look forward to coming to the foundation breakfast in the morning as every year, except when we had COVID, we didn't do it, I guess. But it's so good to hear the good things that the schools do. And as an alum myself, it just gets better. It just gets better. I did Read Across America with the third grade, and I was just amazed at how thoughtful. We were reading about superheroes having a bad day and how what do you do, and the thoughtful. I mean, I like to ask a lot of questions when I'm reading, and the kids were so thoughtful in their answers and how they care for each other. So I really I appreciate your leadership and the leadership and the hard work of the teachers in the schools.
Thank you.
Dr. Roth, can you wrote?
Ruth.
Correct.
Long sort of like the both of us are going to have a conversation right now.
Oh, you know my name very well. Dr. Roth, can you give me an idea of what kinds of certifications they got?
So,
culinary arts I know is in there.
So I know 50 of those 143 were in the certified nurse's aide, and 50 of them were in culinary. The others were divided kind of, I don't want to say the number because I don't have those memorized. I know the 250 are correct, and then the others are through HVAC was like 14 or 15. Construction trades was right around the double digit, and electrical was about the same. So it was really split up over 5. It was HVAC, electrical, construction trade, CNA, and culinary. And there's OSHA certifications in there as well, that we had a few kids with the OSHA certifications.
That's great.
Thank you. And thanks for what you've done in your time here. Can you tell us a little bit about where you're going? What are you going to do?
I really don't know because
He's going to
I
relax.
tell
Just
people,
relax.
in the NFL right now, they're talking about free agency. So whatever, there's getting a lot bigger contracts out there than what's been offered to me this time, and I'm a free agent. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do. I just have no idea yet. So something will come up, I know.
Well, you're certainly too young to retire.
Well, I've just had great jobs, so I look a lot younger than I am.
That's good. We'll see you tomorrow.
Good for you.
Yeah, appreciate the update, Dr. Ruth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all for
Appreciate
listening.
you, sir.
thank you.
Have a good one.
Thanks very much.
Second item on the agenda, Main Street 2022 Annual Reports. New CEO, Ms. Debbie Deere, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Okay, make sure I know how to do this, Paul. Somebody know how?
Is it just on the
On the
PowerPoint?
Adobe?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay. And then do we go down or up? Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me tonight. It's nice to see some familiar faces. I know some of you I'm just now meeting, but I am Debbie Deere, and I am the new Executive Director of the Leavenworth Main Street Program, and so happy to be serving in that role now. I've been a part of the Leavenworth and Lansing communities for 30-plus years, previously as a business owner for 27 years, but now I'm excited to be at Main Street, and I hope that I can bring that experience to the table there and, do some good things together. I also have new staff as well. We have a whole new team there. So Tanya Mine is our new assistant director, and Jenny O'Neill is our administrative assistant. Both of those are part-time positions that work with me there as well. But I just want to say that in my new position, I am very committed to working in partnership with the city. It's very important to me to build positive relationships with everyone and just respect the support that you've always shown our organization and the good work that we do. I met with Penny and Paul recently, and, we've talked a lot about the importance of the collaboration and the positive communication moving forward, and I very strongly want to do that. And I think that Main Street has a responsibility to serve as an advocate for the city, to the business owners, both existing and new, as we move forward. And also just to do that with that communication, to make referrals, to serve as a liaison in whatever way I need to. So I look forward to that. And I also just ask you, as I have many others, to give us some grace and patience while we acclimate to our new roles, and just appreciate your ongoing support. So here's a list of our board of directors for your reference. Of course, tonight, of all nights, the one that I left off was Melissa Bauer, who is the city representative. So I apologize for that, wherever she's at. So she is our city Leavenworth representative, as well as Christy Lee from the CVB. And so I've been working closely with both of them. So in addition to the city, again, as important as our partnership is with you, it's also important with the other economic development organizations, CVB, LCDC, the Chamber, Grow Leavenworth County. So I serve as an ex officio on some of these boards and as a board member on Grow Leavenworth County. And I've also made efforts recently to make connections with Fort Leavenworth representatives, because I want to make sure we stay up to date in that connection and the importance of the military presence in our community. And so, again, just important to have those partnerships. And I've been attending ribbon cuttings with the Chamber, appreciate that opportunity. And, my goal is to obviously not duplicate, but just to complement each other's missions and visions and work together collaboratively in the best interest of the community. And so I look forward to doing that, and I'm staying in communication with those leaders from those organizations routinely. The funding sources, so here's a breakdown of our funding sources that Main Street uses for our operations throughout the year. Our membership and investor dues are our number one source of revenue, and so I am working on building those relationships, meeting our business owners, ongoing efforts to recruit new businesses, and I'll speak to that more in a minute. Obviously, very important as well is our investment that the city makes in our organization every year. That is 20% of our budget, and we appreciate that. And it is very crucial to the ongoing operations and continued success that we have. Our promotions, fundraising efforts, and events are 25% of our operating budget. And then we have our upper story loft rental, and we also rent out a small office space within our downstairs space. So that constitutes about 8%, and then we have outside marketing and grants that we also get. Pointing out the CVB grants that we get, I'll talk to that again more in a minute. And then we also get some funds that I don't consider part of really our general operating, but from the Kansas Department of Commerce, that allow us to distribute those back out to businesses for funding opportunities. And, back to CVB, we do have the shared marketing and sponsorships from them that are very important. And I visited with Christy recently about those and the ongoing efforts for that. And it's greatly appreciated. So organization and membership. We are working, as I said, for ongoing members. We currently have 217 members that we're in contact with. We've been able to recruit new members in 2023 already. And when I sent out this PowerPoint, we were at 11, and now I think we're at about 14 new members. Great. And we have 3 or 4 prospects that I'm going to be visiting with in the near future. And so, that is exciting, and we take very seriously those relationships and keeping those positive, and again, providing the opportunities for them for funding, and then also to make the referrals and things and serve as a liaison to the city. Another goal that I really have is to create more public awareness and education for the public about what exactly it is that Main Street does, because I think there's maybe people that know we're there, but they aren't quite sure what we do. And so I've started a new video called Downtown with Debbie, and we're going to try doing this every week. It's going to be on Facebook and YouTube and our website, and it's going to be talking about, the things that Main Street does, how we can benefit the businesses and community, how can we best partner with them, how they can get involved, and why that's a good investment for them to make, and how that can help grow our economic development and economic vitality in the community. And so those are things that I'm really passionate about trying to do. And then those videos will also highlight the new businesses that are coming in, showcase those, talking to existing business owners, doing some individual videos with them to get people to understand what are the products or services that they offer, and give them a moment in the spotlight to kind of brag about what they do. And we're also looking at new marketing and promotion ideas in order to be able to get the word out better. Our promotions are a lot about what people know what we do as far as the events and things that we do, but it's a lot of time that we spend on this. Our goal is to get both local and outside, out-of-town visitors to shop, to dine, to play, to stay in Leavenworth, and let them emphasize what we have going on locally that should keep them here. So the 40-plus events that we have, you can see here some of the numbers of attendees that we have, and these are, guesstimates to the best of our abilities. We do pretty much know how many Alive After 5 tickets we sell. But these events are created to, one, get patrons through the front doors of some of the businesses to shop and to dine and to play. Some of the other ones just simply attract visitors to the downtown area, and then we're hoping that once they get here, they can see what else is going on, and they'll either want to stay or they'll want to come back, again for another visit. One example of what we're going to try to do in 2023 is we have our summer concert series where we have a concert every second Saturday evening downtown at Haymarket, and we're going to try to create an opportunity to have that be an all-day opportunity for people. Don't just come in the evening, because a lot of businesses are closed then, and they can't go in and take advantage of some of those things they do. So let's find ways to promote specials and to get business owners on board, and let's get them in town all day long, and then they'll stay at the concert and they'll enjoy that, and then hopefully they'll go to some of the after-hours establishments, a couple of new ones in town that are, drawing people in, and then maybe they'll stay. Maybe they'll spend the night. So, some new things, ways to do that. Because we want them to stay and we want them to come back again. So some of the numbers that I know you're probably interested in are listed here. And so some of the promotions that we can actually track dollars on are listed here. And, one of these is a month long, other ones are just a day long. But to the best of my abilities, I was able to figure up about a minimum of $205,000, and that doesn't include sales tax that these revenue that these generated, and it also doesn't include extra dollars that are being spent when they're doing these activities in shopping and dining and hotels and that kind of thing. And so we hope that in looking at this kind of a number, that you will see a good return on your investment that you make with us, and the opportunities and the possibilities that it can bring to generate revenue for our community. when we have some new ideas for 2023, in addition to the one I mentioned, for right now in March, we have Main Street Shenanigans going on. And so that's similar to our Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree, where people can have a stamp card and go around and get that stamped depending on how much money they spend. And this is for not just retail, but also for the restaurants and the pubs and lounges and bars. And then we're going to do a pub crawl in the early summer, and we're going to do a shopping and dining passbook starting early summer throughout the end of the year. So those are some new ideas in addition to the other events that we already do.
And what's the pub crawl?
So it's going to be a one-day event, and you're going to be able to buy a ticket, and you're going to go around to the different participating pubs and bars and lounges, breweries, and they're going to have specials going on, and you're going to be able to get your, card punched and say you were there. We're probably going to have some T-shirts to wear, get your friends, get your family, and that's going to get you to walking around downtown, hopefully. And it's, maybe you're going to going into, yes, walking. Let's see. And, get you to going into other businesses and stuff too. Yes.
You don't have to worry too much about the pub crawl. I know you don't drink.
But it's still a lot of fun, even
Yeah.
for non-drinkers. You
Go
could
down there and
make
enjoy
the
it.
rounds. But again, just creating those experiences that keep people wanting to come back. We have a design committee that is trying to create ways to enhance the beauty of our business district. And you can read here some of the ways that we're trying to do that. But again, a big shout out and thank you to the CVB for the tourism grants that we've been able to use in the past. And we have ideas on, maybe how we can try to do that again in the future. I've met with Christy, and I appreciate her ideas on, some of that and how we can do that in the future, as well as Melissa. And we've talked about those kinds of things. And I also want to meet soon. I haven't gotten to do it yet with Parks and Rec, to talk to them about, what do some of these ideas mean? What are the codes? What are the permits? What are the maintenance everything, it all intertwines. And so rather than putting the cart before the horse, we have a lot of dreamers and we have a lot of ideas, but we have to make sure that we're all on the same page with, making that work successfully. And I also want to start inviting some of the city personnel to our design committee meetings so that they can be present and available to answer specific questions about the project that we're talking about, so that they can help us understand, where they're coming from with some of the logistics of everything and whether or not it's even something that we should consider pursuing, for them. So there's a list here of some of the things that we've had in the past, and like I said, we got a lot of dreamers, so there's a lot of ideas out there that just not enough time in the day sometimes. Our economic vitality, it's another component of the Main Street mission, and it's to work with businesses to provide resources, tools, and information to help them either start a business or, keep their existing businesses successful. And we do plan to have some upcoming sessions and invite, again, city personnel to join us at those to maybe provide clarity and understanding for them, for business owners as they start their business, as they maintain their business, as they renovate their buildings, those kinds of things. And we'll have different topics on different meeting times to do that. And, again, as I mentioned in the beginning, we have a responsibility at Main Street to serve as a resource and referral organization. And so we'll continue to refer people to the city for the funding opportunities and things that you have available. We give out that list all the time to people as they're calling, or lists of ways to, buildings that are available properties. And so if there's any information like that that you can help me gather, I greatly appreciate it, because we get that question a lot. And then we'll continue to give out some of the loans and things like that we have. And, first and foremost, too, we just want to make sure that they know the Main Street office is a warm and a friendly and a welcoming and a confidential space where they can come and ask questions and share ideas and maybe start that journey of making their dream, a reality. I wanted to point out some of the Main Street awards that were given out at our annual banquet in December. These are businesses and individuals that, have a great partnership and relationship with Main Street, very well-deserving awards. Many of them have been here for a very long time, and so, just a shout out to them and a big thank you for what they contribute to downtown Leavenworth and the economy and the community. So that's it, I'm trying to keep it short and sweet for you tonight. Thank you. I'm happy to answer questions.
Very good presentation.
And here is my contact information. If you, please stop by and say hi.
Yep. Quick question, has there been any discussion with the chambers about partnering, collaborating on events potentially for the summertime?
We have started preliminary conversations about ways that we can partner together and enhance what we have going on and come up with new things. And, like the first thing, like I mentioned, Jen and I met, and she had approached her ambassadors about whether or not Main Street could be a part of their ribbon cutting ceremonies, and just, making sure that we were all there together, again, on the same page, showing a unified front on, supporting our businesses, and the same with events. And so, the chamber has a little different mission and vision than we do, but I would love to work with anybody and everybody on, how that could look and to make it the best it can be.
Is that going to happen? You're going to be able to attend those? You think, the ribbon cutting?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. We've already started doing that. And, we're going to be wearing our green to represent Main Street. Chamber's going to be wearing their red.
red,
I got to add a few more green things to my wardrobe. I didn't have very much
St. Patrick's
green.
Day is coming up.
Yes.
You'll find it now.
And we're going to be in the parade. We're going to
yeah.
do that. Anybody's welcome to walk with us. And we're going to be passing out the Main Street Shenanigans stamp cards at the parade. So people can, hopefully, the goal of that is to keep them downtown on that day. Don't just come to the parade and leave and go home. Come to the parade and stay all day and do everything that there is to do with the merchants and shopping and all that. So, thank you very much for your time. Any more?
Yeah, Debbie, real quick, so you mentioned 11 new members this year for 2023, maybe 14 so far.
Right.
What do you attribute that to? Just for reaching out to them and trying to get them on board, or?
I think so, and I think some of them, we're just kind of anxious to see what new leadership is going to bring to the table and how we can accommodate them and what kind of partnerships we're going to be able to form together and, just make their job a little bit easier, hopefully. But there's a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of hard work, and I say blood, sweat, and tears all the time because it's true. And so I hope that they'll continue to get in touch with us. We're reaching out as well as they're finding us too. And, ways that we're trying to help people find us easier. We're updating the website. We're enhancing our social media. We're trying to do these videos and stuff so that people realize what we're there for and what we can help them do.
Sure. And that $205,000 for 2022, what was that connected with again? I maybe lost some of the
So
details
it
there.
was the events that were listed on there. We have Shop Small Saturday, we have our Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree, Christmas in July, and Main Street Bucks.
Okay, that was those underneath there.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so
okay,
that's
gotcha.
where that came from.
And I was just curious, how did you find those details exactly? I mean,
Well, as
I love
those.
seeing a number, just.
As those events were happening, the former leadership had ways of tracking, how much, like those stamp cards were coming in and they were stamped as to the dollar amounts that were actually being spent. They were in communication in different ways with the merchants on, what did it look like on Shop Small Saturday? How many sales did you have? How much did your promotion or your special generate? How much money did that bring into you? Where were the people coming from? That kind of thing.
Okay, and I know you said you've got a lot to kind of unpack and get used to. Do you have maybe a target number you'd like to shoot for this year for economic impact like those?
Let me get back to you on
Okay.
that.
$1 million.
As much as possible. I mean, I have some really exciting, in my brain anyway, fundraising ideas that are going to bring people to the community and really have a lot of fun. And we're going to highlight some of the history of we're so unique here. I talked to I'm getting ready to talk to a lot more of the other Main Street programs in Kansas, but we have a very unique community that has a lot to offer, and so I think we need to capitalize on that and really bring awareness about that, and also hopefully in the process of doing that, make some money.
Well, I already like where your mind is at and where you're going, and I appreciate the update, so.
Thank you, that's
Thank
good
you.
to hear.
I'm happy to be here.
Couple of questions. One, does anybody on your staff or on the board of directors voluntarily have the knowledge and the willingness to complete grant applications?
We do have a couple of people that are, a little more experienced with that. I've had more experience like managing grant programs and, working within them, but I have some experience. So yeah, we need to get some folks on board that can help with that.
And I wish I could remember the second question.
I know somebody in this room that's really good at grant writing.
Somebody's already nabbed me for that.
Okay.
I was not trying to.
No, I know. I'm just giving her a hard time. Well, and, if you don't have your question now, please reach out, I'm happy to.
Certainly. Oh, yeah. Are you finding that there's any competition between Main Street and the Chamber to get members? People who've got businesses that, are they all wanting to join both, or?
We're going to encourage them to join both, and Jen
what
and I
I'm
are going to
talking
partner together
Yeah.
to tell them why that's important, and what
Sure.
we can do for them, and what she's got to offer, and how that can come together, and
Yeah.
why it's worth their money. If you're a Main Street investor, as a business, $250 a year, it boils down to $22 a month. You can make that in tenfold with the events that we're having and offering, throughout the year. So we hope that we can sell it as, a worthwhile investment. And, we're not just there in partnership, we're there in friendship too, because this is the community to do that in. And, I like to create, it's just been in my brain and forever with my business and anything I do in life, the Main Street office can be that home away from home. And, we have our beautiful mural on the side of our building, and it's a very welcoming thing. When people come through town, it's easy to find us, and we want people to come in and see us. You can come in and just to chat and have coffee, or you can come in and really need to talk about some serious business, and we're there for all of it.
Certainly. Thank
Is
you.
there anything else the city can do to help support you?
Just, help come to our events and encourage people to come to our events and to, send them my direction if they have questions.
Sure.
And, help us get that public awareness and education out there. If you have a group of some kind that you want me to come talk to that maybe needs to learn about Main Street, I'm happy to do that. Just getting that word out. Word of mouth is a lot of times the best way to get things, out there. And so anything you can do like that to help, or if you have a question, I'm happy to answer it.
And Debbie, I'm sorry and thank you for that. And, I know you're, like I said, putting everything together. I would definitely encourage you, the more you can track, the more you can measure. And I
Absolutely.
think over time, more teeth you put into this, I think it's going to help us all to get over just the warm fuzzies about a program like this,
Sure.
but like, hey, what's it actually, returning?
I mean, there's a lot of people wanting a piece of your pie, and I know there's never enough to go around. And so I understand that, and, I just had that conversation with my assistant today. I said, we were putting some things in place to better track these numbers, because I know that there's more there, but, maybe it just wasn't kept track of the way it needs to. And so you're right, we need to make sure we're doing that to the best of our abilities. And the other thing I want to start finding out from people when they, I want to start tracking, how many phone calls did we get? How many people did we refer to the city? How many people did, got funding opportunities and followed through with that because we made those referrals? So I want to be able to come back next year and
After you
share
got a
that kind
baseline,
of
yeah.
information
Yeah,
with you.
she'll bring more
Yeah, that'd be
information at our budget hearings as well.
Yes, yeah, I'll be seeing you again in a few months, I hear.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, thank you.
All right.
But no, I'm excited
No, I'm
that you're
good.
here, Debbie, and
Appreciate it.
I know you're really ambitious, and I've known you for a while, so I'm excited to see what you're going to come up with.
Okay,
And I'll be there at some of the events, too.
all right.
Good job, thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
Thank you.
All right, have a good night.
Have a great one. Next item on the agenda, Chief Kitchens, Police Department 2022 Annual Report.
And the title of this is, write this down.
I know I had 174 slides. It's a little bit of a staff riot, so I cut that down. Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor, Commission, I'm pleased to be here on behalf of the men and women of the Leavenworth Police Department to report, to give you the 2022 annual report. For many, many years now, the police department has put together a report that encapsulates and gives an overview of the major events relating to crime and traffic and animal control, all the things that we do throughout the year to try and provide for the public safety for our community. There's a couple of things that I'd like to do to start the conversation, one of which is to tell you that the police department collects just a massive amount of data every day about all of the things that we do. And certainly not all of it is contained in the report. It's more of a general overview. I always get a little fearful that we put too much information in. It'll be the size of a phone book and people won't really read it and pay particular attention to it. And so if there's something that's not in there, you have a question about, I can certainly answer that off the top of my head, or I can get that to you within a day or two if it's not contained in the report. And then the other part of the conversation that I like to make sure people understand is that as much data as we have, and some of it's very favorable, certainly, that's not the only thing that's important to us. Equally as important to the data that we have is how people feel about the community. And as I travel throughout the community and I do community engagements and I visit with people and talk to groups, I try and engage that. That's a little harder to measure, because even if you see this information, it really doesn't have a whole lot of meaning to you if you had your car stolen last year. If you had your business broken into and there was damage done, you feel differently about that. That's more personal. And so, how people feel about the city, do we feel safe? Do the folks feel safe here? That's as equally important as we move through. Okay, so this is not the end-all, be-all. It's only half of what we do. But off we go. Let's talk about the police department and what we did last year. That's the organizational chart. We have 57 sworn police officers working for the police department, and we have 22 civilian employees. That represents where they're all spread out. Essentially, it's mostly officers and detectives. My message to the general public is what I generally lead off with. I think the big, important part of the conversation is that crime was down pretty significantly last year. Part 1 and 2, Part 2 crimes were down by about 18%. That's favorable. That is the 5th year in a row now that the crime rate has trended downward, and sometimes, over the double digits, pretty consistently down, and so that's favorable. I feel like the crime rate's as low as it's been in quite some time, and so I think that can be attributed mostly to the hard work of the police officers and the detectives that are out there doing their work. A little bit of a caveat to that, some of that reduction can be contributed to CCA being closed. CCA was part of our jurisdiction, and when they closed at the end of the year before, we didn't have to go out there and respond. That represented about 75 to 100 times a year we had to go there for a variety of things. Inmates assaulting other inmates, inmates assaulting staff, theft, those kinds of things. And so when they had a crime, they called the police department and we would go out there. And so about 100 times a year, so that's no longer part of the equation. And so although we did have some reductions, it's not quite as dramatic. Some of that can be adjusted to. We still continue to deal principally, our primary problem, what we spend most of our time on is domestic violence. That's our highest call load. Probably 2.5 times every 24 hours of every day of the year, we're responding to some type of domestic violence call. That's the biggest crime that we have in the city that we're dealing with. And then the other broader issue is employment. Just like every other industry that you might have read about throughout the course of the, nurses and teachers, police officers, we're all sort of struggling to get people to come into the workforce. We're doing a lot better in terms of retention. We've made some structural changes inside the police department to be, put ourselves in a better position, due to your support and Mr. Kramer's support. We've done some of that, and so the retention is a little easier. We don't quite have as much discussion about officers leaving to go somewhere else, and so I'm happy about that, and I hope that that continues. And so let's talk about a little bit more specifics relative to the police department. Here's a breakdown of some of the, it's going up there, not on mine. Sorry about that. So this is longevity. If you look over here to the left-hand side, that sort of breaks down the experience level. The big blue one right there that says 27%, that represents officers that have 2 years or less, and that's why some of my hair falls out at a little rapid rate. Young police officers have enthusiasm, and they really want to do a good job, but sometimes they make missteps, and so it takes a little time to correct that. But The bottom left and the bottom right, the green and the burgundy color there, I'm happy that that number is growing. Those are really where we have the core of the officers at. That 3-year to 10-year mark really is where an officer starts to come into their own and really do well. And so I'm happy to see that that section sort of grows a little bit. There's our annual budget. It's a reflection of the city's budget on the right, and then we're a little bit more than $8 million in terms of how much it costs to run the police department every year. Community engagement, one of the fundamental principles that we do is try and engage with the community on a lot of occasions. Every few weeks, we are trying to engage in something. What you see here is one of my favorite pictures. That's a Girl Scout troop of girls that were 5 and 6 years old. They came to the police department because they were trying to get their robot badge, which I didn't know was a thing, but it is a thing. And so we brought out all of our robots. That's our bomb robot there, Sergeant Wooten showing them. They were thrilled to death about that. We had our drone that we flew for them. We've got some smaller tactical robots that we get them, they got to play with and operate, and so they were able to get their robot badge, thanks to the police department. Excited about that. I didn't even know that was a thing, but there you go. So we do a lot of that. The haunted house, coffee with a cop, touch a truck, all of those events, we try and get out there and engage with the community in non-enforcement measures so that they can be a little bit more comfortable around us, which is generally helpful overall. Okay, so some of the numbers, calls for service. On the far right-hand side, you see 20,641 calls for service. That is every single time the member of the community calls the police department, they're asking for some kind of assistance, so just a little over 20,000 times. That represents about 56 times every 24 hours, the members of the public are calling us and asking us for some kind of assistance. Police, fire, EMS, animal control, something like that, okay? The bottom chart represents the number of criminal reports we took, just shy of 3,500. And you kind of see those numbers from about 2017 kind of start to trend down. They continued to trend down. You'll see that reflected in the crime reports as well. Part 1 and Part 2 crimes. Way back when, I think it was J. Edgar Hoover himself invented this plan. Part 1 crimes are the 7 most serious crimes that we deal with. Part 2 crimes are everything else. You saw that Part 1 crimes and Part 2 crimes were both trending down, but overall, we saw a pretty significant drop in the crimes that were reported last year. So I'm very happy about that. Response times, let's talk a little bit about response times. So of the 20,000 calls for service, on average, it sits at about 4 minutes and 50 seconds where someone's calling us and they send the police. That's generally about how long it takes us to get there. That's everything. The more serious stuff where there is a high level of danger, a crime in progress, like a domestic where someone's really in danger, we sit at about 3.5 minutes. And so I'm pretty satisfied with those numbers, but let's talk about that a little bit. They can be a little bit deceiving, so we have to apply some common sense to that. I'm not going to tell you that somebody came to the police department to report a theft and they had to sit there for 25 or 30 minutes. That happens once in a while. But let's say that an officer's driving around and on their MDT a robbery call flashes up for them to evaluate. A lot of things depend on a lot of things. What's going on in the community, what's going on right now, how many officers we have, and what they're dealing with. If the robbery is this, someone walked into the Justice Center and they're reporting something that happened 3 or 4 days ago, that doesn't make the crime less important, but we're not going to drop everything that we're doing and respond with lights and sirens to that. Whereas the difference would be a robbery, like a convenience store just got robbed at gunpoint and the suspect just left the area, we're going to get there in a fairly short order. So these numbers, what you see are averages. On average, it was a little less than 5 minutes for us to get to almost every call, and then the more serious stuff was a little more, about 3.5 minutes. And so I'm pretty happy with that. Obviously, we can get better, but I think if you read the newspaper, you saw something 2 weeks ago where in Austin, Texas, for example, people are waiting 45 minutes on hold on 911 just to get an answer, and we're certainly not anywhere near that. I'm satisfied that we're getting there about as quick as we can. So,
Chief,
yes, sir.
how does that compare to previous years?
That's the first time I actually calculated it, because I think somebody asked me that, and I have a general idea, but we actually took all the numbers and we did some math and we did some calculations. And so I feel like that's probably pretty consistent from terms before.
Okay.
We haven't had much change in manpower and staffing and those kinds of things. And so moving forward, we'll keep that, but I'm pretty satisfied that we're getting there. in the broadest sense, no one's waiting for us to get there when there's an emergency. We're getting there, and we're getting there with enough officers in a fairly short amount of time to handle it. Okay?
So crime in progress at this moment, call 911. What's the timeline on that?
Depends on what it is. Crime in progress, someone did shoplifting, might take us 5 or 6 minutes. A stabbing or a guy got shot in the leg, probably a minute, maybe less than that. But that also depends, right?
Yeah,
What's going on?
Correct.
If everybody's tied up on something really, really big and we have one, it may take us a little bit. But we're getting there in those emergency situations in ample amount of time to help and deal with it.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Yes, sir. Domestic cases, again, this is our biggest case call for service that we had, a little 449. It's kind of trended in the right direction the last couple of years, pretty happy about that. Still dangerous, still probably the most violent stuff that we deal with. Work a lot with our county attorney's office and trying to really enhance those arrests and those prosecutions on those cases. The latest trend, it has to do with strangulation. We're seeing a lot of that. And so we're really focusing in on that in terms of training, recognition, prosecution, that sort of thing to help sort of get those numbers down. But that's really what we spend most of our time. Again, about 2 times every 24 hours, we're going to a domestic violence call. Mental health, again, mental health. I feel like you're seeing a representation. A lot of people have recognized over the last couple of years that the resources for mental health needed to be improved. And so we're seeing a little bit of that in those numbers. Whereas we've had, some people that were really, really troubled that needed some services, not just the police arresting them and taking them to jail or the emergency room, really putting them in a position where they can be successful. And we're starting to see some of that. So I'm happy about those numbers going down. This, again, is about once every 3 days. Probably the second most dangerous and violent cases that we have where people are mentally ill and impaired, armed. We're dealing with those, and those are pretty dangerous. Sir?
And Chief, so the suicide calls, that's a call line to your department saying there's somebody at risk of this, or what is that?
So usually it's one of 2 things. It's a family member calling in to report that their family members are distressed. They're either threatening suicide themselves, threatening suicide and the harm to the family, so we're going to that. The person calls us and says, I'm really having trouble. We get some calls from the hospital that a person is making suicidal ideations, that kind of thing. On the great occasion, if someone calls the suicide hotline, the big 1-800 number that's available, we'll get them, referring them to us. The VA has a lot of resources for vets that are having trouble. And so we get it from just about everywhere. If a particular person is recognizing that someone's having crisis and making suicidal ideations, they're typically calling out, so we get out there and try and help. Okay? Criminal activity, again, we break everything down by just about every category you can see. You see that, we have patrol zones. The left is a city map, and that's broken down. We have 5 patrol districts, and so when there's a crime, we break it down by the time, the location, the address, those kinds of things. And so we really put all that information out for the public to look, and you can kind of make reference to that. Criminal activity in terms of persons crime, that's a 10-year trend where it kind of gives you the specific crimes. The bottom left where it says homicide, rape, robberies, and assault, that's 4 of the 7 Part 1 crimes that I talked about. Those are the serious crimes. So the one that gets my attention the most on the top right, we had 4 homicides last year. And that is typically a little higher than we've seen, but I would just tell you that all 4 of those cases have been solved. The perpetrator has either been prosecuted or is awaiting prosecution. We've identified, we don't have any outstanding cases. Again, we need to try and get that number down. Homicides typically are involved in domestic violence, mental illness, something like that. The things that we see with the calls are reflected in those tragedies like that.
Chief?
Yes, sir.
Could you go back one slide?
Yes, sir. One more?
One more.
Yes, sir.
Homicides, where's the 4th one go? Do you know?
That might be a typo. I'll have to look and find that out, but we have 3 right there, right?
Yeah,
And there's
I know
4.
it was 4.
So we missed one,
I
I
was just
think.
wondering
That's
where it
probably a
was.
typo. I'll figure that out and put that up there.
Okay, thanks.
Off the top of my head, I think it was Area 1. So that should probably reflect 2. There were 2 up in the northeast part, I think. I'll look, and we'll get that fixed.
Okay,
Yes,
thanks.
sir. Yes, sir. Property crimes, the same thing. We break that down by the geographical region, by the number, time, date, location, all that kind of stuff. There's a similar kind of representation there where it's kind of going down a little bit over the course of the last 5 years. So theft, auto theft, burglary, and arson are the remaining Part 7 crimes. I'm sorry, Part 1 crimes of the 7. Part 1 crimes reported total overall. So on the left is representation. Those are all Part 1 crimes. So any of those are the big ones that we deal with. You can see that those numbers have dropped pretty significantly over the course of the last few years, and that's trending in the right direction. Pretty happy about that. Clearance rates, we solve about half of those. When we have a crime that's reported to us, either through arrest or the detectives solving it, we solve about half of those crimes. I will tell you the same thing I tell everybody about that. Even though we only solve about half of them, we probably know 70% of the time who did it. We just can't prove it. We get witnesses and victims that don't want to cooperate for fear or some reason like that. So we actually solve some, but we know a couple of more, just from experience and that sort of thing. And that applies to everything. Part 2 crimes, again, that's everything else, minor stuff. That's going down too. Pretty happy about that. Continuing in the right direction there. Clearances, again, overall, we're solving just a little bit more than 7 out of 10 of those crimes. Okay? And that's a little higher because those are usually in person. Like if somebody's fighting in front of the police, we see who they are and we arrest them, so that's solved, right? That kind of thing. And then overall total, again, we're just a little bit right around 6 out of 10 total crimes being solved, but we probably know a few more that are being solved. Okay? Here's some of the information about the detectives. They were assigned, 472 cases. That's when we have an idea that there's leads to follow up. We give them the cases and they take those cases and they run with them and they're solving, those cases in those numbers. So they do a pretty great job. Arrests. That's a representation of how many people we arrested, 1,386 adults and 81 kids. That's about right.
I noticed the juveniles. That's the lowest you've ever had there.
Yeah.
Some of that is reflected by the fact that we don't have JDC anymore. Okay, that's a couple of years now, we've not had that. So it makes it a little more complicated to arrest a kid. Whereas before we would take the kid into custody and transport him to JDC, and then they would make a decision about parents or, that kind of thing. So we don't have that option anymore, so it's most of the time it's a summons where we're notifying the kid and the parent that you're being summoned to court for a particular crime. A kid has weed at high school or a phone they stole or shoplifted or something like that. If it's a serious crime where they did something really serious, like a violent person's crime, we take them into custody, and with the approval of the right group, we can take them to the Wyandotte County Juvenile Detention Facility and they stay down there. That happens about 6 or 8 times total a year, not a lot, because it's a logistical issue and it takes a pretty high level crime to get there, but that's what we do if we have a serious crime.
I thought you were going to tell me the kids were just starting to grow up better.
We can go with that if you want, that's fine. That's not fine, that's not exactly what happens at all, right? Future
Thank you.
generation of police work available right there, that's what that is. So. Again, arrest by area, you can see there, I always tell people to be cautious about area 2, that's where the Justice Center is. And so a lot of people go to jail for certain things, and then we find out they have a warrant while they're in jail for us, and so we go in and we make the arrest, and that's where it counts as an arrest. And so it's a little higher right there. Domestic violence stuff, by area, by race, by age, by gender, where it is in the community, that sort of thing, you can take a look at that. Narcotics enforcement, here's some information that's important. The bottom one, let's look at the bottom one a little bit. That represents the kinds of calls that we're dealing with that are related to drug and drug arrests and prosecution. The one that worries me the most is meth and fentanyl. Those are really, really powerful, really, really dangerous drugs that cause people to really get out of sorts when they're involved in that sort of thing. Fentanyl, those are people that we've arrested. It's much more complicated than that. From January 1st till about the middle of February, we went to 10 fatal or non-fatal fentanyl overdoses where EMS was able to respond and bring them back. But Not only are we seeing fentanyl as a critical problem both here and all across the country, mostly it is either they have it with them or they're overdosing from it, and that's really absorbing a bunch of our resources. And so we spend a lot of time trying to identify and solve people who are selling fentanyl or in possession of fentanyl. That's our cases where we're spending a lot of our investigations on, trying to resolve that. Meth is the same thing. There's still a little cocaine, there's still a little heroin, and once in a while we catch somebody with a joint, they're smoking weed or something that's still illegal, and they get a ticket for that.
And some of these can be multiple, right?
Yes. Usually, if they have fentanyl, they also have opioids, which are some sort of pill that they've gotten from somewhere, or maybe they've taken it from an elderly person or something like that. So that's some information about the kind of work we're doing on drug cases.
Your officers have Narcan with them all the time?
We're working on that. EMS and the fire department have it, and so it's readily available. We're gonna get some Narcan for an exposure by an officer accidentally for some reason. But I'm pretty comfortable that EMS and fire have it, and it's pretty readily available if we have a problem.
Thank you.
Sure, traffic accidents, and so this is a representation of traffic crashes that we've had. Some non-injury ones and some injury ones and some alcohol-related ones. That kind of gives you some information about that. Citations, we wrote a little more than 2,700 citations. Probably half of those represent speeding tickets or running the red light at 4th and Shawnee.
Yep.
As you can see, those numbers are going to go up a little bit. We're starting to have some improvement in staffing, so our traffic unit is full. Officers write tickets, but the traffic unit focuses on that. And so I'm happy that those numbers are going to start to probably, hopefully, continue to go up.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
Since the increase in the speed limit on 4th Street, has there been any new tickets written?
Yes, because people were probably driving 15 to 17 miles an hour over, and so that gets the attention of the officers. Just because we changed it by 5 miles an hour, that has not represented in less tickets. It's about the same. It's about the same, because people are really sometimes a little bit out of sorts too much, and so we have to give them a reminder not to do that again, and an expensive one sometimes, so.
Thanks.
Yes, sir. Here's how we do by race and gender. We always keep that information for people to take a look at if they have questions about anything like that. We always do that for everything, domestics, anything that we're doing enforcement-wise, we break that down by gender and race and all kinds of stuff, age, all that stuff. Traffic accident locations, you see right there, 4th and Limit is the big one this year. That's a little bit of a change. It's almost always 10th and Eisenhower by Walmart. And so we've seen a little reduction of that. 4th and Limit, for some reason, jumps off the plate there is the big one, but you see 10th and Eisenhower is a close second. And so that's a little bit of an anomaly. And so those kind of give people the folks about where it is that we spend our time in traffic investigations and traffic accidents and enforcement to try and get those numbers down. DUI and alcohol-related arrest, you see that. We're down a little bit in that regard. I think we had some staffing issues that probably are mostly influenced by that. So hopefully that'll be back up next year to where it needs to be. Really need to work on that, to keep the impairment accidents down, which are really, really dangerous. Here's some professional standards investigations. These are complaints about police behavior, okay? So you see on the right, we had a total of 7 complaints that some were initiated by supervisors inside the police department, and some 3 complaints outside of the police department. I think I have those right. Anytime there's a car chase where there's an accident or something like that, we have an automatic measure to do an investigation to look into that, to make sure that the officers are in compliance with policy, stuff like that. Somebody comes in on a bias-based complaint, or officers were rude, or cursed at them, or mistreated them in some way. And so those numbers are pretty low. I'm pretty happy about that. I don't know that you can make everybody happy, but 7 times out of as much as we do, I think that's okay. I can sort through that pretty well. On the left represents we had 2 bias-based complaints. That means a person came in and said, the reason why you did something was my race, and so we investigated those. We did not find any officers in violation this year. And then use of force, anytime we make an arrest where we use force, on the right-hand side there, you see we did that of the, whatever it was, just shy of 2,000 times. We used force 109 times. So.
Use of force.
Use of
That's
force.
when a weapon is drawn?
No. So if I say you're under arrest and you do anything but comply with me, if you resist, if you pull away, if you run, if I have to use some sort of armbar technique, if I have to taser you, something like that, that's a use of force. Anything other than compliance, where we have to do anything to get you to cooperate with us, that's a use of force. I'll talk a little bit about that with another slide here in just a second, how that broken down. But that's a use of force is anything beyond that, okay? So remember, about 5 or 6 months ago, I came to the commission meeting and I asked you to give me some money for the Microsoft SQL Server Enterprise Core Edition. Remember that?
Yeah.
That's a horrible name, so we called it the Light Bright. That's what we calling it. For those of you that might have been around for a few minutes and know what a Light Bright is, that looks like a Light Bright, so we named it the Light Bright.
It is.
So, not to make fun of that, but this is a tool that we're getting ready to deploy. We've been building it for a few months, but we're getting ready to deploy it. So if you take a look at that, it gives us the ability to analyze across the entire department or by an individual officer, which I'll talk about in just a minute. So for example, on the top left there, you see arrest count. So in about a 6-week period, we made 84 arrests. In the sort of right below that, it says arrest count by age. It gives us age. Just to the right of that, by gender. Just to the right of that, the way that we arrested them. We saw the crime in progress, something like that. On the bottom, by race. Right next to that, where it was that it took place. So this is our use of metrics to analyze how the department is doing as a whole, and then how an individual officer is doing as a whole. And so we can set those parameters by the entire year, by month, by shift. We can do a lot of things, but that tool that we bought, that you authorized, is what ultimately led to this, which is our ability to do a little bit more analyzing officer performance and behavior by these kinds of parameters. The next slide represents, for example, I picked Paul Lidnecki, he's one of our busier officers, and it represents what he did during that time. So he made 9 arrests, you can see by age, by gender, by race, by the area, that kind of thing. And so we're building that out and getting ready to deploy that for our supervisors to use, to manage. We can use it at the command staff level to really foray into a little bit deeper analysis of what's going on out there with the officers. So for example, hypothetically speaking, if an officer made 10 arrests over a course of a period of time and they were all females, that might be an indication that there's a problem of targeting or something like that. So we would be able to look deeper into those particular arrests and see if maybe there might be a problem. And, or we can just generally say, hey, we're doing fine. But this is another tool that we're gonna use to analyze both our performance as an agency and the officers, shifts, detectives, all those things, okay?
Cool.
Light bright, not whatever that thing
Light
is.
bright.
Yes, sir.
Officer Howard is really going at it.
Right. She's a rookie, so that's not
22
surprising,
arrests.
right, yeah, that's not surprising. Maybe I should have picked her. So,
We're not gonna call her out here.
so anyway, right, we're excited about this as an opportunity, a tool to help us keep getting better at analyzing ourselves. Use of force, as we talked about, so use of force of 109 times, that's sort of broken down how we did force. Almost all of it is at the lowest level, the sort of minor muscling techniques, arm bars, a little bit of wrestling, something like that. We tasered a few people this year. We used our baton one time on someone that was particularly violent. You might have seen that we had one lethal use of force incident, and it's categorized as that because we discharged our weapon. This was the event at 5th and Seneca where the young man was sitting at the intersection with the handgun, and he charged the officers with the handgun. We discharged our weapon one time. That was investigated by the KBI. The officer was exonerated. The person was prosecuted, and he was sent to prison for quite a while because that's quite a dangerous situation. But it also had a mental illness element to it. And so, these events of use of force, those are the kinds of things that were, they're really serious stuff.
Chief, I'm
Yes, sir.
sorry, on the use of force, the verbal direction, how is that use of force if you?
So let's say I say, sir, if you're under arrest and you take off running, and I say, stop, and miraculously you stop and give up, which happens a few times, then that's verbal direction. I was able to talk you into surrendering without having to convince you otherwise to surrender. We have an occasional circumstance where a person is a little bit far away and we're like, hey, come here. No, I'm not coming here. Yeah, come here. And then they come here. That's kind of verbal direction.
Gotcha.
And so that
Okay.
happens a little bit.
I was just curious, yeah.
Sometimes when a
Yeah,
person is
that's-
impaired, it takes a few times to convince them to come over and they do that. So that works. Verbal direction, right? That's how that works. And then here it is by race and gender. Again, all that information is broken down by race and gender, in terms of use of force. If you have questions about that. The officers, when they do use force, occasionally they get a little bit of, they get punched in the face or spit on or kicked or something like that. And so that's how that's broken down a little bit. Our bomb unit, we have a bomb unit, went out once a month last year, found 10 explosive devices, the occasional pipe bomb that's homemade by a bad guy, something like that, a hand grenade. I think we found a few hand grenades last year. It was like a big hand grenade year. But they take those and they
They were on sale.
get those rendered safe. And then here's, yes, sir.
Do you put that information out that, hey, a bomb was found? And yeah, while it would be dangerous, our police department was able to, disarm the bomb and it was taken away.
Occasionally.
And, the
I think
police have done
occasionally
a
we
good
talk to
job.
Mr. Richmeyer about that maybe. But yeah, so our fire calls processed by the police department. This is our dispatch. We did just shy of 3,200 fire calls. Most of those are EMS calls. The fire department goes with EMS, and then however many fires we had. Animal control. I'm delighted every year to talk about animal control. We had about 990 animals go through animal control last year. We euthanized 11 of those, which represents almost less than 1%. I would match those numbers against just about anybody in the state. I really feel like they do a fabulous job. We rescued a lot of animals to rescues. We adopted a lot of animals and then the owners came back and picked them up. And so very happy about the performance of our animal control staff. Here's, some reflections of the numbers we handled, picked up. We had the occasional goat, chicken, that kind of stuff. There's the occasional non-domestic animal we have to deal with down there. Very happy. And we still have some bite cases, about 50. Yes, sir.
What does housed mean?
They were there. We kept them for a couple days.
Oh,
At
and
the
somebody
animal-
came and got them?
Yeah, somebody came and
Okay.
got them, we adopted, we rescued, yeah.
Yep.
And then some bite cases, we had about 55 bite cases last year. A couple of them were pretty serious, where people got injured, and so they get cited for that, for having a dangerous dog, that kind of thing. And then there's some animal enforcement stuff that we did last year, 388 total violations, running at large, dangerous dog, that kind of thing. Most of the other ones are things like registration, vaccinations, those sorts of things that really, there's back end stuff. Okay, so that's it. We did an awful lot. I'm really proud of everybody over there working very hard. They worked a lot of overtime, they worked a lot of special events. They're just doing a great job for us, keeping us safe out there. And so I'm happy that the crime rate's going down and everybody's doing some good stuff over there for us. And I'll be glad to answer whatever questions that you guys might have.
Appreciate you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
I'm glad that you're staffed up,
Yeah.
that we were struggling for so long.
Right, really seeing some progress on retention. That's probably where we're doing the best at. We have 4 openings. I would anticipate that that'll be down to 3 here in about 6 weeks. There's a young girl that's getting ready to graduate from Benedictine. She's my intern, and so I'm making her graduate college first. And then when she graduates, she'll probably start right after that, about a week, so that'll be at 3. We're still not doing well in terms of getting people to apply and show up and test. We're still of about 5 or 6 that are showing up to test, but I think that's everywhere. Everybody's kind of struggling with the same sort of employment issues that we
But
are.
your time split is, you got like, almost half of your staff has been here 6 years, so that
Right,
was a good.
and that's where we're seeing the progress at,
Good
because
thing.
before, I think it was less than that. There was a lot of
Yeah.
2 or 3, and then right there, people would leave to go to a different place. And so we really, I feel like, made a lot of
That's a
progress and
lot
sort of
better.
stabilized everything. And right at that 3-year mark is when they really sort of start to turn the corner and blossom, and we can put them out there and they can really do some good work.
What's the average age of the officers?
19, something like that, I don't know. So let's see, I would bet half the police department is under the age of 30 still. That's the biggest bulk of the officers you have to be 21, so probably 22 to 30 is probably where everybody else is. And then there's probably another group right above that that are a little bit older, and it kind of gets, and then there's me, I'm the oldest guy at 54, so nobody's older than that.
So what are some of the challenges that you're having?
So, experience is one, right? It's difficult to get through those first couple of years where an officer is a little bit full of themselves and they are work through how to communicate well with people, so that's a challenge. But they're doing really, really well, most overall, because I've really hammered home the last 4 or 5 years the issue of training, right? So, for example, the state statute requires officers to be trained at 40 hours. So that's what the minimum requirement is. So I've asked everybody to target 75 hours of training. And then we did the numbers. I think we averaged last year like 113 hours. And so when you see them start to sort of turn the corner and get out of that rookie phase to that, and they're really training and learning and growing, that's when they really take off. It's those first year or so when they're out there by themselves that they're likely to make a misstep. And as long as it's not too bad, they can learn and grow. That's probably the biggest challenge, getting the rookie officer over that hump into that 3-4 year person that can really go out there and really do a lot of good things. And so other than that, the regular crime stuff, they're doing a great job for us. So that's probably the biggest challenge, is getting those rookies trained and ready to go. And asking the public to be a little patient sometimes when they're too stern or something like that. That's a challenge that we spend a lot of time on.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Do you find that, as a city of Leavenworth, are we competitive, on the wages?
Yes.
With the surrounding areas, so maybe that's not as much of an issue?
Yeah, we
Anymore, or-
made some structural changes a couple of different times over the last 3 or 4
Right.
years, and so that's really put us in a good place. And so we're not losing the officers that have been here for 2 and 3 years. That's when we really struggled. We're not having that as much anymore, knock on wood.
Yeah.
And so that really was a really difficult problem. We invested an awful lot of time and money in them, and then they would go and get these big raises. And so we're not seeing that nearly as much anymore. So I'm
Good.
really happy about that. I feel like we've really made some progress on that. And so to the extent that we talk about that as we come up on budget, staying ahead of that, staying on top of that would be important to us to keep the staffing issues making progress.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Chief, could you run through, I was just curious, back on your fire calls processed by your team, what's the triggering point where you guys actually will process one of those calls for the fire department?
So most of the time, someone calls 911 because there's someone having a medical issue. And so we will simultaneously, the police department dispatcher and the county will dispatch fire and EMS to that call. So that's most of what triggers, that's what most of those are representation. Occasionally, someone will just call and say, hey, my house is on fire. And so that will dispatch fire. And then PD will go to support them for traffic control so they can, make sure that fire trucks can do that. So that's the 2 reasons generally why fire gets sent.
Okay, cool.
Yes, sir?
Thank you.
I have one, I used to bring the rookies out to go to the trust talks, and do you ever see any of those coming up again?
So Reverend Landrum was in my office today.
Imagine that.
Right. We were talking about a lot of things, one of which was the next time that we're doing that. So he and I conceptually agreed to probably around the middle of April for the next one.
Great.
Because he comes about once a quarter and visits me, and we talk about it. We agreed, let's let it warm up and get out of the winter so nobody's coming through out of the winter. But I
Yes,
think
those were
probably
great.
either at the community center, his church, or somewhere, we're talking about the first couple of weeks of April, and just to get everybody together and visit and see how things are going. So I think that's probably the next, somewhere around that time frame.
That's really good. I
Yes,
really
ma'am.
like that. Thank you.
There's no other questions. Thank you, Chief.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Yes, ma'am.
Great report.
Need to fight crime.
Good.
Are we all good?
I think
Yeah.
we maybe need 5.
Yeah.
Any five?
All right.
Okay. That's fine.
Recognition sign discussion.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. As you will recall, we've talked about this at a couple of study sessions over the last year. We've got out along 4th Street, down by Ray Miller Park, and then up by Lawson Elementary School here on the north end. We have a total of 9 existing folks or groups who are honored with recognition sign. And so the discussion up to this point is finding a way to consolidate those current honorees into a more consistent looking sign display and get them moved into Ray Miller Park. So we have talked about a draft sign policy, the recognition sign policy. We've gone over that last year. We did include that in your packet just kind of for your reference. So that keeps control with the commission in terms of selecting new honorees, provided some new criteria, and all of that. And so tonight, what we're here to talk about is the actual signs, what this is gonna look like. As you'll recall, we had worked with Young Sign Company to come up with some options for that. At our last meeting, when we talked about this back in September, we looked at some conceptual designs. There were 2 that the commission had asked us to move forward with on getting some cost estimates, and so that's what we're here for you to look at tonight. So the first option that had been favorable is this option identified as concept 5, which is an individual pillar with 3 recognition panels per support. This would be approximately 5.5 feet in height. It'd be constructed of aluminum with digitally printed vinyl lettering and graphics applied and secured to a concrete foundation. They'd be painted with this black, red, and blue color scheme. That would be applied with urethane paint. Young Sign Company has indicated that that's pretty durable, not something that we would see a lot of weathering from. It's something that's pretty common with these outdoor signs that they install. So the estimated cost for this design concept, it would include 4 signs that would allow for 12 honorees, so 3 per sign. That would account for the 9 total that we have now, plus a space for 3 additional in the future. The estimated cost for all 4 of those to include the construction, installation, that would be approximately $18,000 for those 4 signs.
Okay.
The second concept that the commission had liked was identified as design concept C1. This consists of custom individual displays. Each individual would have their own display. It'd be a silhouette, an information panel, approximately, again, 5.5 feet in height. They'd be constructed of steel custom cutout silhouettes attached to steel tubing, vertical supports, and again, secured to a concrete base foundation. The estimated cost for this concept would include 10 signs, so it would be the 9 that we have now, plus a base and future sign for 1 more in the future, is approximately $42,000 for 10 honorees. So we had talked about moving these inside Ray Miller Park, and I've got this pulled up on, how do I get rid of that on the sharing.
Try to drag, yeah, there we go.
There we go. Okay, there we go. So Ray Miller Park out here, where the entrance is to the VA. I'll zoom in just a little bit. So we've got the entrance with the existing parking lot. There's a little gazebo there. Out towards the kind of the path along 4th Street, that's where the byway markers are that were installed by CVB. So this is sort of the general area that we had talked about installing them. Penny and I have talked with park staff. They kind of agree that this would be sort of the location they would be anticipating as well. So this, one thing to note about this particular portion of the park is actually owned by the VA.
And so park staff is pretty used to working with the VA on, getting things installed here. Those byway markers are actually on the VA property, even though it's part of Ray Miller Park. Steve Grant indicated that they're pretty easy to work with. Park staff does already do all the maintenance and, all of that for this area, so.
So, Mrs. Hurd, so you're saying like by the gazebo?
We don't have a specific, just kind of in this general area is where the thought had been, since there's already a parking area for folks to pull in.
Right.
We had talked about there being some sort of directional signage pointing people off of 4th Street, so there's somewhere here to park. So folks could get out and look at these signs without having to walk, half a mile around the park to get to them. So that was why we had been looking at this general
That's good
area.
exercise.
It is, and they're certainly welcome to do that, but they might not all want to.
Right. Yeah, no, thanks.
So what you're saying is, these 3 signs, you got 3 signs of this type. Is 18,000, is that 6,000 apiece, is that what you're saying?
It's 4.
For the,
3 for who we have and 1 more sign for 3 additional new
yeah,
ones.
so
So that 18 would be divided by 4 then? They're not 18,000 apiece?
no,
Right, yeah.
the total would be
They're divided by
18,000.
4,
Yes.
total. Okay.
42,000 is the total.
And then to add, if you're adding another sign, and you've got just one person, you can put the one person and then add to that same sign, you wouldn't have to buy a whole new sign.
That's correct.
Correct, so with this,
That sounds reasonable.
we've got, again, 9 that are currently recognized, so that would need 3 separate signs, sign pillars, since there's room for 3 on each one. And then this cost, includes a 4th pillar that would allow for 3 additional future honorees.
I think that looks good to me. Having each individual sign made up, I just think it's too much.
It's cool, but too much, right?
It is
Agreed.
cool, they are cool,
Oh, yeah.
Where's
I
the
think this
funding
is
coming
classy.
from?
This
but
one
it's too.
Yeah,
is classy.
Where's
Yeah,
the
I think
funding
it's-
coming from?
Yeah,
So
me
the-
too.
And there too.
The funding with the 18,000, pretty minor, so probably some combination of CVB and economic development dollars, so we wouldn't have to, it wouldn't be any,
Yeah.
take any general fund dollars, it'd be transient guest tax or economic development set aside.
Yeah, guest tax would be.
I'm in favor
Tourism.
for the standalone signs. I know it's a little extra in the price, but really making it personable to the individuals that we're actually honoring and recognizing, I think that's really important. And then it's really going to attract more individuals to come inside of the town, especially once we start to place these signs up. And our goal is definitely trying to bring in more people into our community.
And this red part here, though, you would have, on any of these signs, they would have information on the red part, right?
So the thought was that the red portions would have a brief bit of information.
Good.
And
Yes,
then
yeah.
we plan to still use the QR codes to
Okay.
connect it to
Yeah,
the
I was gonna say the
website.
QR,
So we
yeah.
could keep that updated. Let's say Melissa Etheridge came back and visited. We could continue to add on to the website with that. So the thought is that there'd be further information available, more than just what's on the sign.
So this QR code, I guess, on here would be good for all 3 of them. Would talk about all 3 of
It
them?
would pull up to the Hometown Heroes recognition page.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
You could
Then you
navigate.
navigate.
All of them will
Okay.
be the same QR code.
Yeah, and then you could just select the link on the.
I got you, yeah.
So, I guess the best thing to do is to go around the table. Nancy, I know
And you
understand.
heard, yeah, you heard what I said.
Yeah, I agree with these right here, from a cost
Yeah.
perspective.
Oh,
This one.
man.
I agree with you. These would
They look
look
nice, yeah, but-
really cute. And then, it starts entering my mind, okay, how far apart, because these things are going to be 5.5 feet tall each.
Correct.
Or when you put them on the podium, the ground level, the concrete, they're going to be 6 foot tall. And yeah, they'll attract a lot of attention. How far apart do you have to put them? And is there enough room on that, well, it's not there now, on that side of Ray Miller Park to put them? They would look great. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, and we had talked
Yeah,
with
but
Steve
that's what
Grant
the
too
funds are
about
used for, though.
maintenance in terms of, mowing around them, park staff, would it be needing to mow around each of these? And so that's another consideration in terms of, spacing, they need room to get between them with their, their mowing machines and,
Well,
you
and
know,
there's a design
Yeah.
it's a design concept, so
Yeah.
each new sign you have, you're gonna have to have a new design designed for it, which is another.
yeah.
Another fee.
So can you
Yes.
go back to the old one?
Yep.
The other one? So this, when I see this sign, and feel free to push back, I see it, it's almost like we start off with Melissa Etheridge, then we go to Wayne Simeon, then we go to Dr., how do you say this?
Levitt.
Levitt. And so it's almost as if, to me, it just looks like we're prioritizing, like this person is more famous than this person, than this person. So it's not really honoring the individual themselves, but it's just almost as if we're just saying like, here, we're just gonna stack the people up as they fall in line. You know what I mean? Does it
Yeah,
make sense?
I see what you're saying, but I think it'll be fine. I mean, we're acknowledging everybody, it's classy, it's changing it up, it's standardizing it, you know, and, I think something will offend somebody with this decision.
Well, you can't make
But I think
everyone
this will be,
Well, and currently we have
That's fine.
standalone signs. And so I think, I'm in favor of the standalone signs.
This is gonna look so much better than all those scattered different kinds of signs that are out there now. I did have a question though. What are we doing at the north end?
So the signs that are up there are just, they're repeats of ones, these are all pictures down at Ray Miller. The ones that are recognized up at Lawson, they're duplicates of ones that are already down at Ray Miller. So
Yeah.
they're not separate ones. So all the signs that are out there currently up at Lawson and at Ray Miller would be removed, and we haven't talked through exactly, you know, what's gonna happen with the signs themselves. But all of the individuals or groups that are recognized currently up here or down there would be placed on,
On these? Yeah.
yep, on whatever option we go with.
Well, this is getting a little bit ahead of it. I would think you might contact the people that are honored or the families of.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
And offer it
Yes.
to them.
Yes,
We would.
absolutely,
Those-
yes.
Those
Yeah.
were done with private funds,
Yeah.
so we would want to make sure we return.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So let me ask this question,
Or display them somewhere else.
because I'm all in favor of the standalone signs.
going down swinging.
So just say if we were to do the standalone signs and the people that we're actually honoring and recognizing, if they made the decision to contribute toward these standalone signs, would we be in favor of that?
You'd have to get all of them
Some
to
may
do
do
it.
it and some may not.
I would be,
Some.
yeah, I'd be afraid you're putting a,
I'd
Scattered.
be
Yeah.
afraid you
If you're
might
asking
limit what somebody might be able to do that might be honored down the road, and then, I don't know, we've said it.
Because then we might be back to square one with then like that, because some would be this way and someone would be the other way. You know, on,
Man, I just think those standalone signs look good. The transit
They
gas
do.
tax
They
funds
do.
are there. You know, that's what we use them for, tourism. It's gonna attract people. And then just ask the question. I know that the first sergeant, you know, he definitely want to get a recognition sign for his school for the group that actually won nationals. You know, JROTC. Like, what is that gonna look like?
I don't know, or were they gonna put that on school property?
Well, that's a decision for the commission if that wants to be,
The Raiders.
yeah,
the
the
Raiders.
JROTC Raiders, if that's, if you would want to utilize, you know, the sign recognition policy to include them in this, or, you know, come up with some other alternative to have them, you know, put a recognition sign on the school property. So whoever the commission decides, based on the policy that gets adopted, you know, whether it's JROTC or another individual or another group, you know, down the line. Then with this option, whoever it is, you know, their panel would have the same appearance, it would be real consistent. And then, you know, with the standalones, it would be some sort of individual design that Young Sign Company would need to come up with for each new honoree.
So we get input from the community. Gotta try everything.
I guess though, what kind of input?
Yeah, which
It's not
ones look better?
scientific though.
Well, we only got two,
Yeah.
I think, you know what I mean? Because like I said, it's still gonna be inside of the park, it's for the communities, honoring those that have contributed to the community. And so
I just pictured one big giant sign with these other signs either put on it or individual signs put on it. That's what I pictured. I didn't picture these, I don't know.
Yeah, you had something in mind, kind of like down the road, the other side of Lansing, they've got that big billboard with all
Yes,
the
that's kinda
organization
what-
signs.
But something
Yeah.
nicer.
Yeah.
Going to
But
Lansing,
something
yeah,
nicer.
has them all.
As you're
That's
coming
what I had in
northbound.
mind.
Yeah, yep.
I didn't really expect all of this individual standalone stuff. I expected them to be consolidated because I'm sick of seeing them spread out all over town. And so somehow consolidated, but I didn't expect them to have individual signs, still individual signs or, you know, or even a line of signs. I don't know.
Yeah, and so this option consolidates them
A little bit more,
a
yeah.
little bit
Little
more
bit,
than
yeah.
having the individual.
And you recall when we brought this to the commission last time, I think we had 3 or 4
Yeah.
sign concepts. One was a larger sign, similar to this, but larger, with a lot more side flags, if you will, that would do one sign that incorporated everyone. And it seemed like at the time, in comparison, these were the 2 concepts that the commission said, let's go back and get some more price quotes on it.
Yeah.
So it's the price, that's the problem, that's what I'm hearing.
No, I don't think so. I mean,
Yeah.
every time we add a new sign, we're gonna have to totally redesign it. I mean, she obviously designed, he probably, Eric designed these, but anyway, each one is gonna have to be designed differently as they come in. And, I don't know.
I think the people are worth the investment.
Do that to me.
No, joke.
Don't you do that to me.
And I see what you're saying.
I do think they're worth the investment, but but I think they're worth a lot more than what we've got out there now.
Correct.
That's for
correct.
sure. That's for sure.
So I want to hear from the public. We're a commission, we gotta make a decision as a whole, so,
Well, that's one of the nice things about being at a study session.
yeah.
We don't have to make the decision
have to make a
tonight.
decision.
That's
about
cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But you need to
That's what I'm saying.
So if you just want us to do
Time
nothing,
crunch.
then we'll do nothing.
Because it's,
I don't
yeah,
want us to
it's
do
been,
nothing.
it's been taking a while to get to this point.
Yeah.
I think the first study session was in June.
Yeah, of last year, yeah. And I know people were like, what's going on? What's going on?
Yeah.
All right, can we just bring it up and we'll just make a final decision, the next study session, we'll go from there. All right, whatever it is.
No, we don't make final decisions at study sessions. We'll
Just to get a
We'll have
consensus.
We'll have a consensus.
Which
It
way?
won't be the next one. The next one we have reserved for the 2
Yeah.
presentations on Fire Station 3, but it'd be probably the first one in April then.
Yeah. So you all just go home, take this with you, just visualize yourself on these signs and
Do you think that's?
see if you can have a connection that way.
There is no time limit. It's just whatever you choose to do.
Yeah,
I love you, Nancy.
I guess.
Who's developing the
Another few weeks.
narrative for each
Well,
one of them?
Is
Who will
that,
be
is that,
writing
is
that?
that a consensus that we have right now, is to
Table
wait
it.
until the next one, or what do we wanna do?
I say table it.
Do we have, those are the 2 things sort of before you now. Do we have a consensus to move forward with this? Do we have a consensus to hold it until a study session in April? We need a consensus
I
either
consent-
way.
I consent to move forward with that right there.
I say wait.
I say wait.
Thank you.
Edward, Mr.
We're just
Hingela,
saying.
where were
Back
you?
from the
Wait,
community.
I'm good for this, but it's not a consensus unless.
Oh, we got one more.
Of course.
Public.
I mean, I like these, but, I mean, we've waited this long since June of last year. A few more weeks, I guess, wouldn't hurt.
So is there something that you're wanting staff to do?
They just want
interim?
staff, they're waiting for
personally,
some
me-
feedback,
Okay,
public
I mean,
feedback.
do we need to put something
No.
out, or, okay, so you're just waiting for people to
I guess.
hear from people
Yeah, if the mayor
yourselves.
wanted,
Yeah.
some
Do we
people
want
to.
to invite people to,
I'll take pictures of these and put them on my Facebook
Yep, I plan
page
on doing the
and see what
same thing.
I mean, we can
So-
do the same
Yeah, if
thing.
you can do the same.
put
thing,
them
that'd
on
be great.
the, put it on the city's website and ask for people
Let the
to
city do it, yeah.
make comments,
Let the city do it.
Yeah,
and your comments are going to help determine what we do.
I would just ask wherever we post it, especially if it's on a city website, excuse me, that we list the individual name
The prices,
cost
yeah,
for each of
everything.
this, because,
All
And where
the-
the funding is coming
yeah,
from,
all the
and what's the purpose of the
information. Yeah.
funding, so they
Yeah,
are aware
yeah.
of everything.
the other is over the price, so.
Okay,
yeah.
can do. All right, we'll bring it back.
Yep, appreciate you. Go around, that concludes our study session. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Joel.
Going around the table, starting with Paul.
Sure, just a couple quick things. Thank John and Leavenworth Times for putting the article about the Woolman upgrade in the newspaper with a picture. It looked really nice. I'm really excited about that for our public. We're also getting ready to planning in the date for the opening of the splash park with all the new
When is that?
features. And so probably at the end of April
Okay.
that we'll do that. So excited about that. Restrooms are open and being used out at the parks. Bids for polycarts came in today. We actually ended up getting 4 bids. We expected 2, so 4, so that's good. What we're doing now is making sure they're apples to apples.
Sure.
That we're getting the same quality, but also the same delivery methods, the same services. So those are scheduled to come before you this month in March for the bids for the polycarts. It's pothole season. The roads never look worse than they do right after the end of winter. They've had a rough year, so we're.
It says winter over.
So our hot boxes are out. Please have people report potholes. We'll work on those. We did move the pavement management program up. March 21st actually is the bid opening for the first half of pavement management, so we'll be doing that much earlier this year. And then finally, just a little personal anecdote, I got to watch the KU game at Wilcott Brewing on Saturday, and there were families in there, and there were people playing cards, and people with takeout food, and it was pretty busy, and downtown Leavenworth was very active Saturday afternoon, so that was really cool to see. I had a friend in town, so we went down there to watch the KU game, so it was pretty neat. And Sean was working on a Saturday afternoon drilling fence post holes in the back to get the outdoor area ready for St. Patrick's Day, so.
That was his goal, yeah.
Great group down there at Wilcott, so that's all I
And
have.
what about this? Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, no, I didn't have anything. I'll tell you one thing I did, which I talked to Paul Kramer about, and sort of Sarah a little bit, is since our last meeting on trash bags, or, that we're not gonna purchase them anymore, and I know a lot of people are coming down and buying them, but, just still have a lot of questions, which is okay. It's confusing with the poly carts and the trash bags, but, I think they do have an information sheet, I think at the city clerk's office, that answers a bunch of questions. Am I right on that? Yeah, that. And, when did you say we're gonna, is that?
This month.
This month, yeah, so. Good. And that's all I have. Have a great rest of the week.
St. Patrick's Day is coming up.
Yay.
Yeah.
So go get your green and be ready, and if you're part of a contingent that would march in the parade, go out there and march in the parade and have fun. Enjoy it. Come on downtown and see how many people will be cheering you on as you're marching by.
Yeah.
March 17 starts at noon. Parade starts at noon.
Rain, sleet, or snow? Rain, sleet, or snow?
Yeah, any,
Yeah.
doesn't matter, don't matter.
Yeah,
It don't matter.
we've always had a variety.
Just wanted to, I guess, kind of mention to the commission, I think everybody's seeing it, just from an economic standpoint right now across the country, consumer borrowing is up a ton right now. And there's a lot of companies right now that are really asking for extended payment terms. And with everything up in the air, Russia, China, everything, and other infrastructure issues that we're kind of having across the country right now. Just a word of caution as we get into the budgeting season. I think, this is just my opinion, I think we're on maybe the front end of some tougher times ahead, potentially, with raw materials and cost of goods going up even further. So just want to throw that out there, not to be a Debbie Downer right now, but anyway, just if you start hearing more and more on the street, just want to pass it on. So anyway, outside of that, everybody have a good rest of your week.
Okay, on a positive note, Ride LV is the name of our new bus service, and it will start on April 10th here in the city of Leavenworth. There's more information on our website, the city website about this, and Melissa's putting out a lot of information on this. But we'll be able to order tickets online and other ways too. You'll be able to pay cash too. The costs are $2 a ride, per ride, a flat rate. And anyone is eligible to ride, but children must be accompanied by an adult. And rides are limited to locations in the city of Leavenworth city limits, except for a couple of medical clinics, which is right outside the city. So they will be operating 8 to 5 weekdays, and handicapped accessible vehicles are available, and we're excited. Did I get it all, Julie? Okay, so that's it.
So how long have you been
Finally.
working on this project?
More than 8 years.
Yes.
Started really trying to get this going before I was even on the commission, so this is, I could have used this last year. When my husband had a knee replacement, I could have used this to get around when I was on medicine where I couldn't drive. So I think a lot of people will be able to use this, and I'm really excited about being able to offer this service in our community with the help of the Kansas City Area Transit Authority, and we have 3 buses, and with the help of KDOT and with the help of the city, so. And the Guidance Center. The Guidance Center is going to be running it, so anyway, thank you all for helping us work toward this.
That's good. Great job, Nancy, on playing a big role in this as well, and everyone else that contributed to this. I just want to say thank you all. God bless you. Hope you all have a great week. That concludes our meeting. Meeting adjourned.